Hi there, and welcome to this episode of Collecting Giggles. And I'm joined by the masterful Portuguese performance manager, which is Steve Lee. How are you doing?
Hello. Yeah, I'm not actually Portuguese. I just live in Portugal.
Yeah. Well, you'll get the tan at some point and the accent, hopefully in the lingo. But without further ado, I would like to talk about Arsenal winning the Premiership yesterday or last night, but I don't think anybody cares other than myself. So instead, we're going to talk about zero clicks. And for those that don't know you, that term has been around for some time. But for those that don't necessarily understand what zero clicks is, Steve, how would you best describe it?
Well, first of all, congratulations on the Premier League title without a ball being kicked. 0 balls kicked to win the Premier League title yesterday. So zero click is a term that's been increasingly being used to describe the fact. Well, it's kind of a broad term that is applied to generally referring to the fact that search engines are now providing panels of data, or answer engines are providing snippets of data, or large language model replies that don't lead to a click to the source website. So where we used to kind of think about SEO being the key thing to drive traffic to our website and grow our brands, now there's another element that we need to think about, which is often referred to as zero click, which can be both a blessing and scarily quite a curse, because you might do lots and lots of work to get your website optimized so it's picked up by search engines, and then by extension picked up by answer engines such as ChatGPT, Gemini, and the Anthropic stuff. But you'll never get a click to your website, so it won't generate any traffic. So then you need to have some tactics in place as to how you do generate traffic, or you just need to have a place in your marketing. When you're thinking about your marketing in your marketing stack or in your marketing planning, you need to think about what role zero click plays for your business.
Okay, so if let's give you some examples. So I think one of the first things, if someone's looking for weather, I think Google now comes up with the weather straight away. But people will probably be used to, say, looking for a local plumber, and it's the maps come up. So you can call directly, or you can even book restaurants, or you can do all of that stuff from Google, can't you? You don't necessarily have to go to the website. So that's more even sort of high intent searches, but the sort of top of the funnel searches, more sort of informative information, I do use this, because I think this has probably terrified all of these kind of affiliate websites where they do, if I'm looking for a golf club, I'm saying, best golf club for 18 handicap in 2026. And there used to be loads of blogs, didn't they? And they used to link off to Amazon, and they get a bit of commissions, right, trying to link off to Amazon. But now it will serve that information at the top of the page, won't it? Is that what we're talking about?
It is. That was a while ago, wasn't it, when you were playing off 18?
I'll get back there.
So, yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, I did some work for a mobile phone accessories company, which is a sort of fast-moving consumer goods business, e-commerce business years ago. And the main source of traffic was blogs, which they had a really good in-house blogger, and they were able to kind of hit a lot of really interesting tech points. They did a lot of how-to stuff, so they kind of found niche phones that were not necessarily the most kind of talked about phones, but were quite popular in terms of sales in the UK and Europe. And then they'd write a blog about how to do something with that phone, like how to access a hidden setting or some such thing. And those blogs used to drive huge amounts of traffic to the website. Now, whether that traffic was converting traffic or not is a different question, but a lot of the traffic, like something like 70% of all of the traffic going to the site, went to the blog. When Google introduced the information panels, this must have been back in sort of 2017, 2018, where you ask, how do I do this specific thing with my Samsung Galaxy A5 or something? And that information panel used to come up on the search engine results page. There was a notable traffic drop overnight. Well, I won't say notable. I mean, there was a terrifying traffic drop overnight. And that was where we first started to see this, particularly for informational stuff. So, it's important, I think, when you have a content plan these days, to have an idea about what the purpose of your blogs are, and what the intent of people that are likely to find them is. And there are ways we can talk about where we can kind of mitigate the problem of zero click, and also harness the power of being in those snippets without necessarily craving that click that we also dearly want.
So about 10 years ago, the idea of creating these blogs, and I think everybody's done it. Well, I mean, there was various reasons, but predominantly it was to sort of attract and gain traffic from people that are kind of interested or within your sort of topic, your sector, whatever you're trying to flog, and get that data, increase your brand awareness. They'll land on your page and they go read the content. Oh, who created this content? Oh, there. And then it's just that brand awareness. And then you might have a little call to action at the bottom saying, oh, download our guide about XYZ. So they download it and they capture your email address. So then they can get you, sending you the email information, all the rest of it. Or they could do things like retargeting. So if they land on your blog, they can have a sort of a meta pixel on there, or Google tag on there, so that they could do advertising. So even after they leave your website, you can still deliver advertising messages to them. So it's getting their attention, maybe getting their data, and trying to resell to them over a period of time, depending on what it is you're trying to sell, and like the length of that buying process. So it's been around for some time. Why are we talking about it now? Has it significantly changed in recent months or years?
I think it's changed more than anything else, because downstream of the kind of rapid rise of the answer engines and large language models, a change in search behavior has occurred. So the way that people used to search on Google is kind of put in a few keywords. Going right back, it'd be put in 1 or 2 keywords. Going back sort of 5 or 6 years, it'd be put in maybe a longer string, but you know, not necessarily a syntactically correct grammatical structure. Nowadays, people are tending to just talk to Google or ask Google, or you know, other search engines and answer engines are available. But I try typing in grammatical, syntactically correct sentences and just talking to the search engine in a more conversational way. And as a consequence, you know, all of these things together mean that, you know, that people's search behavior and their expectations of what they get back in results is far more, I suppose, far more defined. They're not looking for a list anymore of things, or a list of answers, or a list of blogs, or a list of websites. They're looking for a definitive answer to a question. Even with shopping behavior, this is the case. You know, like you were talking about, searching for the best driver on the market for what people will now probably search, you know, a normal sort of, using normal speech patterns, will say, I'm looking for the best kind of recovery club on the market for someone with an 18 handicap within this price range that I can get delivered tomorrow. And, you know, there probably won't be that many options. And the people that have optimized quite well for that might end up, you know, sort of surfacing their product in the search. But at the same time, it's very often the case that the large language model will come and just sort of tell you which ones are the best clubs available. And if you're a retailer selling a club, that's selling a golf club, and you're one of many that sell that brand, then kind of like you're just kind of you're all there sort of fighting for crumbs off the same table.
Yeah, I always wondered about this, about when you're sort of selling products online, how useful is this sort of strategy in terms of top of the funnel, getting the content, educating the person about a product, giving all the tips and advice about the product. People go, oh, right, that's fantastic. Yeah, I'm going to get that product. But they just go into Google Shopping and find the cheapest and quickest supplier with the highest ratings, don't they? They don't buy from the person that created the blog. So I think, are there certain businesses that will be affected more by this change? Is it the sort of service providers, or is it product providers? Is it local businesses? Do you think that there are particular businesses that will be more affected, negatively affected by the reduction of zero clicks?
But it's an interesting point you make, because we talk about types of businesses and we're thinking about online businesses, right? But the kind of behavior you're describing was that, like in the old days, we used to call it showrooming, where someone would go out to a load of shops to kind of do their research about what kind of product they wanted. You know, if it was a sofa, go and sit on the sofa, you know, jump on the bed, you know, walk around DFS or wherever people buy beds these days, Dreams, and you know, like lie down, check it's long enough, check it's wide enough, check it's bouncy enough. Take down the model number or the SKU code, go home and find it online. I mean, those probably aren't great examples. I think DFS and Dreams make their own beds, but you get the picture. You know, bicycles, things like that. Where can you buy? And that was showrooming, that used to be known as, right? So people would just buy stuff online, and you never needed that experiential. You never need to provide that experiential thing, because like people can go and get that in the shops. And now you're sort of, what you're describing is like showrooming, but it's a fully online experience where someone's going around and doing all their research online, and then still just going to the people that sell it the cheapest. I did it the other day. I bought a washing machine. I did a load of research, used a load of kind of big brand websites, and then just went and bought it off a kind of pile them high, sell them cheap, like, you know, B2C retailer, you know, B2D2C retailer. So that behavior is super common, but I think that we perhaps leave out, like from a search engine, I will come back to the to the types of business that are affected. I think we need to give that some thought. But from a search engine perspective, what you described earlier, where, you know, you get people onto these blogs and they'd read the blog, and then at the bottom it'd be sign up to our newsletter or download our guide or whatever. That's not the only reason we used to try to drive traffic to blogs as well, because we also used to like link out of those blogs to provide search equity to some of the key landing pages on our sites, to boost those, to give them a bit of Google juice and get the search engine rankings as well. So that's another reason why we wanted to drive traffic to the pages. And that's increasingly becoming a black box where, you know, Google are going to be, Google or whoever, you know, the information, the data companies now are going to have all the shopping data. They're going to have all the consumer data. And we're increasingly paying Google for access to audiences. So, for example, if we're selling, I don't know, tires, for example, then we can ask Google to find people who are in the market for some tires, and Google will find it. And there, Google's using lots of signal data around what people are searching, what websites people are visiting, and of course, we'll freely provide our data to Google to sell on to our competitors by just putting a G tag on our site. So we're all kind of victims of we're all sort of victims of our own kind of quest to get to the top. And we all find that we're sort of sharing, you know, eating those crumbs off the table, I suppose, as I mentioned earlier. But with regard to the types of businesses that are going to be most affected by it, well, I think highly commoditized retailers, particularly that are selling the same as the things that you can get at loads and loads of other retailers. I think the landscape for those guys is just getting harder and harder anyway. Obviously, Amazon's been eating their lunch for 15 years. And now, and loads of those small e-commerce businesses have gone by the wayside. And now they've got this extra challenge. And it's just going to be, unless you've got a niche product, or you manufacture your own product, or you've got you're selling luxury goods, it's really, really hard, I think, these days to compete in any kind of high volume, low margin business. I just think that the days where people were like thought that drop shipping was going to be the big thing, or like they could make a load of money doing drop shipping, or people could set up an e-commerce business from their bedroom and just source some stuff off off AliExpress and sell it through their own website. I think those businesses have either gone by the wayside, or their days are severely numbered.
Now we'll touch on, tactics and how to kind of get around zero click. I think one of the biggest things that I would suggest works with pretty much any business, and that's kind of brand building. So you talk about Amazon. So how they've got around it is by building such a massive brand and having an app and having a unique differentiator, which is like, just fast delivery, like, one click, next day. That's it. So they get around the Google search because people don't go into Google, they go into their Amazon app to start searching for the product, not Google. So that's one way e-commerce brands can do that, is by building such a powerful brand and a customer base and a loyalty that people will just go to their app or their website straight away to do the searching because they're comfortable buying from that company. But that takes a lot of time and effort and money to try and build that brand, I suppose. Local businesses, they've got to make the most of sort of their Google business profile because they're so dominant at the top of searches now. Content creators are the ones that I would suggest are going to be hardest hit. whether that's kind of like bloggers before. But ways that they could get around it is doing video content. So I think you mentioned about, talking about how to, like Samsung and this, that, the other. There's no better way to do how-to information than videos. So you can't really, I mean, you do get the videos at the top, but you still got to click on press play and watch the video. And Google will sometimes direct you directly to a certain section of that video, but they're still going to watch your content and your brand. So I think video content is a really good way for content creators to try and get around that zero click a little bit. Yeah, I mean, B2B services, I think that again, it's brand building, I would suggest, and they can still use, well, how would you suggest it? I mean, they can still have these blogs and information sections of their website, and to help the overall SEO and just make sure Google understands what the website is all about, what they're an authority on, internal links and all that kind of stuff. So that there is always a benefit of it. You can always use blogs for emailing out to people, sharing it on social bookmarkings and website and that kind of thing. So there's more to blogs than just ranking in Google. But how would you suggest, if content creation is still part of a B2B services marketing plan, how do you try and get around this zero click in terms of sort of the written content? Is there another reason why people would click on that link? Does that make sense?
Yeah, there is. That's a really good point about giving people a reason to click on the link. Interestingly, the last couple of weeks, Gemini have started to deliver a final paragraph in lots of their AI responses now. That tells you where you can go to research further on the topic and explicitly lists links. Before, that was a little bit hidden in the sources footnotes. Now, I think that the data companies, and Google particularly, are going to be highly incentivized if they want people to keep producing the kind of the data that they're using to power their large language models. They're going to need to incentivize them somehow. So I think there will be a delicate balance over the coming months and years about how often and how they actually find ways to include people, to include links in those AI responses. It won't be long before they start monetizing those links as well, and you'll be paying to be in certain searches. So when you're trying to get into, you're trying to surface your Google ads, for example, for a query, and you're getting surfaced on the search engine results page under the All tab on Google. When someone clicks on the AI tab, it's very likely that you'll also be able to pay for an AI link at the end of a paragraph for specific search queries, or allow Google to sort of do some AI magic supposedly around getting your ad in front of the right people, even if it's as a text link in a paragraph in the bottom of the AI description or throughout the AI description. But yeah, it's for B2B services and for all sites really, particularly people dealing or for all businesses, particularly people dealing with niche products or things that are high value, considered purchases, the ones that aren't just that kind of like high volume, low margin. I think there's an opportunity to get into the mix with zero click, to get like kind of cited by the answer engines, just by like correctly marking up the pages, doing good FAQ sections, making sure you're using schema markup for the JSON schema markup to push that out to the answer engine so it's easily read by Google and OpenAI and so on and so forth. I think that's really important, particularly if you if you are trying to do some brand building. It's kind of more like off-page brand building or off-site brand building. Like that possibly is more important at this stage than blogs. I think that one of the key things is, video is a good example, and like it's not too hard to create videos these days. Even from a blog now, you can use tools like Notebook LM to create your YouTube video based on the blog content. And businesses that should be doing that, as a matter of course, if they can't afford an internal resource to go and make videos, they should at least be kind of turning any of their written content into explainer videos, or so on and so forth. But there are lots and lots of different things that you can offer. So if you're a B2B business selling, for example, finance, we deal with a few businesses that work in that field. It's all very well to be cited on the by the panel or by the answer engine, maybe with your name, maybe not with your name. You can try to manipulate it. So like there are some, that you do sort of shoehorn your name into the script the JSON script that you provide to the answer engines. But if you provide some added value on the page as well, so a finance calculator, for example, or an interest calculator, and you mention that in the snippet that you push to the answer engines, a tool that someone can use, an interactive tool that you can embed on the website that people can use to do things, that's going to be more valuable, I think, than just writing reams and reams of kind of SEO heavy content. So, and the other thing about those sorts of tools is like increasingly they're much, with the advent of kind of vibe coding and stuff, they're increasingly easy to create. It wouldn't be very difficult to create. I mean, in a couple of hours, you could probably knock up, like a finance calculator, like, how much am I going to pay over what term, what's the interest? You could easily sort of knock one of those up in a morning, and then embed that in an informational page with a good FAQ block and push that out to the answer engines and see what bites. And other such tools, I think that there are plenty of different tools that you could create actually, but you want to give people a reason to go onto your website, do something that they can't just do on the search results page. And the search results page ultimately is just going to be text, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Can I you just touched on a good point? Can I share my screen?
Yeah.
And hopefully show you. So I saw this on the TV the other day, and it just interests me. So can you see this page about obesity is a disease? Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay. So I saw a TV ad and I saw this, and it seemed to me like it was maybe like a campaign by the NHS, and it said start questionnaire and this, that, and the other. But it was really kind of supportive of people, and it was talking about how to, it was this, they're getting this message across that obesity is a disease. Okay, so we're on one side and all the rest of it, and it's really quite supportive of people that might be struggling with obesity and all the rest of it. And I can't remember why it really took my interest, but I thought I'd check this out. I said, because I don't think it really mentioned the brand name, obviously, but the brand is actually a company called Lilly. So I checked them out, and they obviously make medication and pharmaceuticals and all the rest of it for obesity. But it's a good way to kind of get people just to go straight to their website. I think there might have been a QR code on the website, or just search for obesity is disease and their adverts come up. And you've got to start this questionnaire. There's nothing on here about trying to flog you any products here at all. But it's just a good way to get into this. It looks like a free NHS service. But in fact, it's a business that will be at the end of it saying, right, we're going to give you this strategy of losing weight. And part of that strategy is obviously buying some of these pills and tablets. But I think it's a really good way of, again, building that brand, getting people into that kind of buying funnel that's controlled by you, and having something more than just text information on there for Google to just crawl and deliver up for free. But, start this questionnaire. It engages people. And at the end of it, it's like, do you want to buy us our product? So that was just something that I noticed that was quite clever, I thought. Yeah,
I think that's really good. So that's kind of a classic lead magnet. And I like it. I mean, I don't particularly like it. It's probably quite nefarious in some ways, I suppose. But from a marketing perspective, it's quite hard, isn't it, with pharmaceuticals because of Google's kind of the your money, your life stuff, which means that it's hard to sort of just push pills online. There's a lot of disclaimers, and there's lots of kind of what do you call them, regulatory barriers that you have to jump over. Sorry,
not easy to advertise.
Not easy to advertise. So, what these guys have done here, I suppose, is that they want to build a cohort of people that they can market to. And the first thing they want to do is they want to qualify their leads. So we won't be filling in that questionnaire, will we? Because we're not in their demographic. But we'll but you can pretty much guarantee that 99% of the people that fill in that questionnaire are smack bang in the middle of that demographic. So it qualifies really well. In order to get that page listed or kind of cited by answer engines or to the top of the search rankings, it does well for Your Money, Your Life thing. It bypasses a lot of that by being purely informational and not being overly commercial. So that's a really good a good way around that. And by the end of it, presumably they get a list. I presume when you finish that questionnaire, you don't get to see your results unless you input your email address and your mobile number, which will then be presumably also used in remarketing to you and to lookalikes of you and the cohort that you belong to. So it's going to be that's you can see that's part of a very larger, a much larger marketing plan. But these sort of landing pages and lead magnets are really good, I think, for any business actually, because if you can, if I could, how much would an upstart or a startup golf company, like you just go back to your passion, how much would a startup golf company pay for a list of all of the people who actively play golf in the UK? I mean, they pay, wouldn't they? It'd be something you pay for. You could probably buy that data off some some backstreet data peddler. But if you wanted to do it in the correct way, you're going to have to go and find those people, and these are the kind of things that allow you to do that. So any business can do something like this, can set up a lead magnet, can go and find a load of people in the cohort that they want to market to. Then they can feed those email addresses and mobile numbers or whatever data they're able to acquire into something like Meta or Google and say, go and find me more people that look like this. This is a lookalike audience or custom audience that like kind of based on an existing cohort of people. And that's classic tactics for sort of what do they call them? Sort of, entrepreneurs, but like the solopreneurs. That's what they call themselves. They do that's a classic tactic, lead magnet tactic for solopreneurs who are trying to identify a very specific market niche for themselves without necessarily going all commercial on touch point one.
Okay, well, I'm going to throw a bit of a sort of curveball into this, and a lot of people sometimes get stressed about the idea of they're not going to get any clicks from Google anymore. And the data definitely shows that 10 years ago, the amount of click-throughs from every search, the percentage was about 60%. Now it's 25%. So if you're thinking, blimey, that's 25% compared to 60% just 10 years ago, I'm losing out on all that traffic. However, I did think about it and I thought, hang on, is there just not more searches? People are more conversational. Like before, it was just like, find me a plumber. They'll click on some plumbers or whatever, and then make a call. Now it's a case of, I have a plumbing problem, this, that, the other. Who's the best person for this? What questions should I ask them? This, that, the other. But the amount of click-throughs through to the website still remains about the same. Would you say so? I think, I don't know. So let's just say it was 1,000 searches and there were 60 click-throughs, that 60% click-throughs, that's 600. But if we're saying now that there's 10,000 searches because people are just more conversational and there's 25%, then there's 2,500 click-throughs to websites. So I'm not saying that is the case. I did quickly ask ChatGPT and it says it's a good point, but it didn't actually give me any data apart from the percentage of click-throughs. So we also see this when we look at Google Search Console. So Search Console, free tool for anybody to use it. It gives you an idea of how many times your website appears in the search engine, so impressions, and how many click-throughs your website gets, and for what search terms those click-throughs come in. It'll even give you how many impressions per search term and all that kind of stuff. We have definitely seen that impressions are going up, but a lot of the time the traffic remains the same. And some people think, well, what's wrong with that? Like, what's as in what is going on? Why are we not getting enough clicks? Well, it's because the click-through rate is dropped and we're talking about 0 clicks, but the actual amount of traffic to our clients' websites remain the same or just goes up. It just doesn't go up with the same correlation as the amount of impressions. I believe the amount of click-throughs through to websites such as that are trying to sell, like a service provider, product provider, I do believe that they actually remain pretty much the same. It's just the amount of searches has increased greatly, whether that's in Google, ChatGPT, people are more conversational. So I wouldn't stress too much that your actual website traffic is dying, but there is a lot more opportunity because of the way people are searching, far more searches. And therefore, if you do all the right things, like, creating your website in a way that has rich data, snippets, schema, that kind of thing, and do brand building, then I do believe that you'll be fine. So I'm not sure where you got where you dropped out there, Steve, but so my philosophy there, or my idea, there's the actual traffic through to a website actually remains the same. The percentage has dropped. It's just because there's far more searches now. So what would you think?
Yeah, but yeah, I think the point stands. Like, even going back, it's bizarrely recent actually that I was working for a business, working with a business, helping them to get a shoe brand on, off the ground, selling online, and people saying, yeah, there's certain things people will never buy online, and shoes is one of them. Just the idea that, like, there's anything that people won't buy online these days just seems to me to be so antiquated. But this was as recent as like sort of 4 or 5 years ago. So there's just more business. There's a lot. The high streets are dying, unfortunately. There's less business going out to the high streets. All the purchasing dollars are getting spent online. So when it's just, even when we talk about specifically just people going and buying, that's happening much more online now. E-commerce in our countries, it's not the same everywhere, but certainly in our countries and most of Northern Europe and the US. So that's sort of e-commerce. With regard to researching for other things, like, we talked about financial services, B2B services and things. Yeah, I think people are doing, like, maybe because of, like, I don't know, I don't want to get all anthropological, but maybe because of COVID, maybe because of the increasing kind of atomization of society, people seem to be kind of pre-programmed now to, or at least used to, like, looking at reviews written by people they've never met, rather than relying on word of mouth referrals, which used to be, the gold standard of, like, picking an insurance company or a solicitor, for example, or an accountant. So yeah, I do think there's a lot more traffic. There's a lot more traffic out there, and there's a lot more. There's probably the same amount of clicks, even though you're getting a smaller percentage of clicks. And everything's just exploded into a million pieces. Like, you have to find your niche, because you can do one thing really, really well. So if you're an accountant, for example, then I'm sure you offer a full suite of accountancy services, but there's probably enough search traffic out there for people who are just struggling to pay their corporation tax bill, or just very specific niches that you can just go in hard on, because there's traffic out there for them. So you're right, I think.
To be a specialist accountant for butchers. You know what I mean? It could be that niche, couldn't it? And there's no reason. There's enough butchers out there to keep an accountant happy across the country. So yeah, finding a niche, whether that's a particular service or a particular sector, that's not such a bad thing. There's plenty of
butchers. You might have stumbled across with butchers, one of the few products that people are still would rather buy in a shop than online there, with meat.
We still get we get our food delivered in, like, pre meals and all this kind of stuff. But
yeah, there's butchers that are always all over the podcast. You can just get a box of meat delivered every couple of weeks.
Yeah. So I mean, there's a lot more search. There's still the same amount of business going on. Still the same amount of products going on. There's still the same amount of business in terms of accountancy, solicitors, whatever, digital marketing. People are still doing business. So the business there to be had. People can't do that without actually speaking to people, clicking on a link and this, that. They just can't do it. So don't be too worried about it. But there is an issue with zero clicks. How to make the most of that is building a brand, giving people a reason to come to your website, building a brand, not just in terms of the business, but personality. So people might want to get information from a certain person because they trust them. So talking about trust, build your reviews and all the rest of it. So there's various ways in which businesses should be investing their time and energy to ensure that they can make the most of all the additional searches going out there, and whether or not people go straight to that brand because they trust that brand, or whether or not that's making sure that your business appears in the AI overview, whatever it may be. So making sure that your website is technically sound with structured data and all the rest of it. So there's plenty of stuff you can do, and I think there's more opportunity than ever. So I appreciate your time, Steve, and I look forward to our next episode.